at Vicksburg. He was the founder of A.Y. McDonald Manufacturing. During the Civil War in 1862, I believe it was, he received patent number 38,316 for the modern day monkey wrench. So Andrew Young McDonald is basically the father of the modern day monkey wrench, and he has a patent to prove it. We also had Oliver Shiras, the federal district judge in Iowa, who is the organizer and founder of Eagle Point Park. He came to Dubuque in the 1850s. He served as adjutant general for Francis J. Herron pretty much throughout the war. His brother came to Dubuque in the 1850s for about 3 years and practiced law as well, and then moved back to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, their hometown. George Shiras eventually went on to become a Supreme Court justice in the United States Supreme Court. He practiced law in Dubuque for about 3 years. Oliver Shiras remained in Dubuque his entire life after he moved here in about 1853 and is buried in Linwood Cemetery. These are just some pictures of a boat for a gentleman who was in the U.S. Navy, that his personal sketches in the case here as well. The last person I want to talk to, and I'm kind of starting to run long in the tooth time-wise, so I'm going to wrap it up here quickly. The last soldier I want to talk about is Alabama Jim Sutton. Alabama Jim was not born or raised in Dubuque. Alabama Jim was born in Mobile, Alabama, where at a very young age he was orphaned. He was taken in by a family to work on the family plantation outside of Mobile, Alabama, in a small community that was very pro-Lincoln during the 1860 election. He was subsequently drafted into the Confederate Army, into the 48th Alabama Cavalry, much against his will, but he really didn't have a say, so he went and served, being from a pro-Union, pro-Lincoln town. He served in the Army in Stonewall Jackson's brigade for about a year, was at 2nd Bull Run, when eventually he found an opportunity to defect from the Confederate Army. He was eventually then taken into the Union Army and served in company of the 12th Tennessee Cavalry till the end of the war. After the war, he ended up moving to Iowa and spent the remaining next 4 or 5 decades living in Maquoketa, Iowa, in Jackson County, and was the oldest and last veteran to die in Jackson County, Iowa. We actually have his photograph, a daguerreotype, in the case as well. He never did have a Confederate uniform. They were too poor. Their infantry was too poor to raise money for uniforms. The first time he had a military uniform was as a Confederate, when he was able to pull a uniform off a dead Confederate's body to replace the rags he was wearing at the time. And then his first issued uniform was a Tennessee issued uniform for the Union Army, for which he's wearing in this picture here. Everything I know about Dubuque and the Civil War I learned here in Carnegie-Stout Library using these resources. So I have their call numbers here for these different resources. The microfilm section of all the old Dubuque and Galena newspapers is wonderful. It gives you a sense of daily life 150 years ago, which I'll tell you is not much different than today. They had a lot of the same types of articles, a lot of the same quarrels in politics, and a lot of the same types of advertisements. We also have a Iowa reference section where you have a host of books that are very specific to Iowa and the Civil War, that have specific soldier names, regiment histories that are very detailed with dates. So if you think you had a family member who served in the 9th Iowa, you can go look it up and see all the soldier names and validate whether or not they served in that regiment or what regiment they did serve in. We also have Ancestry.com that is available from computers here in the library, that you can also research military records and family history if you don't have your own personal subscription to Ancestry.com. Great resource to use here. So the Iowa books section you can see here is just located to the right of the reference desk on the second floor. The microfilm for all the newspapers are right next to it. And the reference desk is always happy to give you guidance to any of these Iowa-based sources. Otherwise, there's a host of other books on the Civil War. There's some on the cart that are just general books, typically dealing with either biographies of soldiers or individuals like Lincoln or Douglas or Davis, or about armies out west, or about the Civil War in general. It's the Iowa reference books that are going to be specific to Iowa units and Iowa soldiers. They also have books there for Grant County, as well as Joe Daviess County, as well as other Iowa counties like Clayton County, Allamakee County, that have information and histories of soldiers in it. And with that, I thank you very much.